I want to take a little bit of time to talk about aging. um, when you're a young person, you look back or you look forward and you see older people and you say, "Oh my God, this is so horrible." Physically, uh, they're not able to do the things that I'm able to do. They have health problems. Mentally, they're not working as well. It's very clear that aging is a bad thing, right? And I still feel very much that way. The thing that confuses me is there's these people who say something along the lines of, life was never so good as after, and pick your age, 70, whatever. I'm not there yet. I'm not expecting it to be any good. Certainly, life has been on a continuous decline. Uh, I don't know since when, you know. Um, it's kind of complicated for me because I went from being pretty much dirt poor at around 35 to, having a reasonable job and collecting up, and now I have no worries in terms of like I can foresee situations where I might be completely screwed, but essentially, well, barring the Trump administration and what they're doing, fucking around with the economy, I was in okay shape. Now, God only knows, but says the near atheist, right? You know, some people would call me an atheist, soft atheist, whatever. I think the term agnostic fits perfectly fine. I just don't know, and one can't actually state that there is no God. Anyway, that God kind of works into this because I wonder if that's the reason, right? So I'm left with okay, what could you possibly see that makes, a life. I had a friend visit, and he's my age, had this like pill case with him where he's just got to take so many different things. Now, you know, I'm assuming he was on the worst end of the health scale or the lower end of it for various reasons. Because, I remember my dad at this age and later uh, having to take a few pills regularly to manage cholesterol and such not. But he certainly didn't have, this panoply of them to deal with. Um, in fact, when I moved back with my dad, he was significant. He was, not 10 years older, but 7 years older than I am now, and it felt like he was a fairly, capable person in a lot of ways, in ways that I don't feel like I am even, right? Like, with my life of walking everywhere I have to go and whatever, I feel in worse shape than he was at that time. But anyway, doesn't matter. He still had, his knees would hurt, or a lot of different things were going wrong that didn't used to go wrong, right? And it's just so confusing to me to say, okay, so at what is it that is making you happier at this age? Presumably an age where you're retired and no longer have, work considerations. Well, I did that. I'm doing that. It's what I wanted when I was, in my late 20s and early 30s. Uh, for sure. And it's what I've kind of wanted all along. And I'm not particularly happy about it. You know? Now that I have it, I feel like all it does is promotes a lethargy that I kind of got used to working and that routine and everything. And while I wouldn't, go volunteer or do something for nothing, I came pretty close to thinking that I would do this by applying for a job teaching at the university, um, that I hoped would have been required me to leave the house a couple of days a week at most, uh, just to just to have some more structure to my life or whatever. But that aside, yes, this was sort of my goal, but I sure the hell, you know, don't feel better than I did in the same kind of loneliness, largely, although at the time I had a wife, say, you know, 20 years ago. Well, say 25 years ago. 20 years ago puts me in that weird sort of place where I was back in school. Which I don't feel as good as I did then either. And I'm not just talking physically, I'm talking in a lot of different ways. Uh, some of it probably comes down to this is as alone as I think I've been ever. Like when I was, before I moved away to college the first time, I was living with my parents. I had to interact with them. Not necessarily good interactions all the time, by any means. And I wanted out of that to a large extent. I moved kind of as far away as I could to stay in state college. Not really as an intention of that, but I found friends in college. I had a good time and whatever in there. And I mean, certainly, look, if I had people to hang out with and all that, that would be a different facet. But the older people that I know don't seem to lead the life that I had in college in terms of, going out to be with other people multiple times a week, right? It doesn't feel like that's what they're living. Now, with a partner, like had I still been with my wife or whatever, would that be different? Yeah, a little bit, but not a hell of a lot. But again, that may be more to do with me. And again, I still wouldn't see it as fulfilling or as free or whatever as I felt at other times in my life. And that's kind of where I get to this. Look, I mean, I know people who are going traveling all the time, but that just sounds like a fucking burden, right? Like the idea of doing lots of things sounds anathema to who I am. And that may be the sort of key here, is that I have such a predilection for sealing myself away on my own that even when I do go out and do things, it's not like it once was. First of all, it takes a bigger toll on me. Whatever the things are, just hanging out, You know, it takes a bigger toll, and the idea of things like, you know, going traveling or something. Wow, that was always kind of a difficult decision for me to make, and maybe I enjoy it, especially for, you know, a couple of days going to another city and exploring it or whatever, like I did in San Francisco when I went there close to a decade ago. Uh, I don't know, but that was the last time that I left here. Certainly while my wife was still alive. I don't know how much before uh, her death that was, but you know, somewhere between 5 and 9 years ago. Probably around 6. I'm guessing. Anyway, yeah, because it certainly wasn't 2020, so 6 or 7 years ago. I don't know that I could enjoy that the way I do. And I had this recently. I thought about going out Saturday night after having gone out Friday night. And I got myself dressed, I got a cigar, I went and I walked about a third of the way. And my body was hurting and not feeling terribly well. My gut wasn't feeling well from the time that I left. Because I put a lot of strain on myself, both from drinking and from dancing. Um, Apart from any physical considerations, well, maybe this is a physical consideration, the night felt darker in the sense that I couldn't see as well. Now, I couldn't see as well as just, I don't know, last year or whatever, right? Which felt kind of weird. I don't know if it's a peculiarity of this particular time of year, and you know that the sky still had a little bit of light, just a tiny bit in it, that was just a particular time of night that, like, it was harder to assess what things were in the dark. And there was just less joy in sort of the just walking. Now, I had an okay time walking outside during the day. That wasn't the issue. But it felt like there should have been, I don't know, just more pleasure in just being out and making my way back. It's beginning to get dark earlier now and whatever. But in many ways, it wasn't just a physical thing. There was a psychological component to this that just didn't feel at all right. And that led me, at all right for what I'm used to now, and that led me to thinking way back and how much I used to go walking at night. Like, with or without people, and taking a certain enjoyment to that all, that just seems completely gone at this point, which is very, very disturbing. Anyhow, I'm getting off topic because I'm not even sure this was the topic I wanted to talk about. Like, there are two things on my mind right now. One that's more political. But I really wonder what it is. And it may be that I'm just constitutionally ill-suited to this situation, because I will burrow into my hole and you know, be isolated and whatnot. And it was always hard for me to make contact with other people and for me to continue those contacts, whatever that may mean. And now, at this age, with people my age, it feels much, much harder. Like, most of the people I know are at least a little bit younger than me anyway. Um, but they have responsibilities and jobs and lives and whatnot. And I kind of am free all the time. So I'm like, well, just feel free to let me know whenever, And, I almost feel like that kind of availability makes it particularly less useful. And I'm not talking about being thirsty or anything like that in terms of like really, really wanting company. Kind of don't in a lot of ways. I'm more averse to it, so I'm not like reaching out and grabbing people. But on the other hand, that's how I always have been, right? It's just that there was a time when very peculiar era of my life when there were people I could just drop in on without feeling any problem with that, or that I could call and say, hey, you want to go for a walk, or that I was living with and could just do that. And now I don't feel like I have anybody that I could do that with, um, which kind of blows. So that is less than it was back when I was younger, as well as everything else. But I'm really, just confused by these people. You know, it almost feels like sometimes what I think is, oh, now that they're free of responsibilities, uh, they feel, you know, that they can engage in the things that they really wanted to do. And that's not where I am either, right? I'm free of responsibilities and I still do what I want to do as much as I did before about. And then find myself, burying myself in addictions or time wasters or stuff like that to fill the time. And I still find myself awake at night when it's harder, to make contact with people, even if I could otherwise, and stuff along those lines. Um, where it just all just feels like, yeah, I got less purpose now is all. um, and I also see myself in terms of like my particular tastes and hobbies and whatnot. Mentally, I'm not doing as well. I'm not able to keep track of as much as I used to, I think. Or maybe it's that I'm jumping around from game to game more than I used to. Not more than I used to on video, but more than I used to, back when I was very young. And that the piling up of them is just getting to be too large or whatever. But that's got to happen with every hobby, right? I mean, if you do woodworking, your hands become weaker, your eyesight gets worse. Just everything. There's always going to be something that gets in your way of whatever, unless maybe you like sitting around on a chair fishing, In which case, look, if that's the kind of thing that I always made fun of because it has absolutely no appeal for me. Um, the things that do have an appeal are either more physically or mentally active, and that physical and mental activity is fading away, or capability for it. At the same time, I feel myself, maybe because of internet addictions and whatnot, I find myself less willing to just sit out on the porch and read than maybe I was willing to at one point in my life. at many points in my life, points where I had more to do, that more obligations and whatnot. Um, and again, walking now, which I used to enjoy a lot, feels more and more of a burden when I think about doing it. And when I actually do it, it's a crapshoot. It always was. I don't know if it's gotten worse in terms of the actual enjoyment versus not. It feels like a couple of years ago it was about what it always was, but what happened, hmm, I guess yes, no, day before yesterday. What happened the day before yesterday uh, pretty much has me very worried along these lines. That even the things that I used to take a certain percentage enjoyment out of, chance of something decent happening, has reduced greatly. I mean, yeah, it's almost like every pathway is slowly constricting and sealing off, and in some ways that maybe makes sense, because, like, if I think about the time that I got laid off work, I kind of made the decision of, yeah, I mean, when my wife died, yeah, I kind of made the decision, but then when I got laid off work, even more so, that, geez, I don't know if I'm going to live, more than 6 months or something. Uh, I have some apparent health issues, and I don't go to a doctor. Therefore, I don't get insurance because it's just not worth it, you know. Um, but it does, it kind of limits everything. So things like, doing the yard work or cleaning my house, my roof, or the house itself, or whatever, everything, or getting my teeth taken care of, which I can tell there are cavities in them. I can feel them. They don't hurt, but I can feel something that's wrong. Um, like air passing through them almost. Is sort of a, yeah, but I don't think I'm going to make it very much longer. So why bother? you know? Um, but I feel like I should be taking more enjoyment out of that freedom from even those responsibilities. And I don't have it. Like, I can't look at something and say, oh, this is what I want to do, you know? Um, Everything kind of seems, I don't know, more tasteless. Uh, I like eating, but eating's particularly dangerous and bad. Plus, I have to go shopping more if I eat more. Uh, so yeah, I mean, it's just like, it just seems so alien to me. Anyway, what I was trying to get to was, if they're at this point where, yeah, finally free to do the things I wanted to do, travel, whatever the hell it is that you wanted to do all your life, I have to think that the life of responsibility that they had to feel so much worse to them, because they're in the position that I'm in. I don't think that's the case. I think that there's just this certain intrinsic negativity inside of me, that that makes things not good no matter what. But one of my thoughts was definitely along the lines of, wow, how much worse must their life have been? And was I lucky to be free of that? It didn't feel like I didn't feel like I was as happy as they were at these earlier periods, and I don't feel like I'm as happy now. um, but yeah, I mean, I'm sure that there are chemicals I could use, rather whether pharmaceutical or otherwise, that could intervene and change this. But again, there's something deep inside me that feels like that's alien to me and would be changing who and what I am. Who and what I am is this misery. And but it feels wrong that it's getting worse. Well, or proper that it's getting worse in the sense that, yes, I'm aging, it gets worse. It's going downhill. I knew that from a pretty early age that it was all going to go downhill. And that it's just going to continue and that it's actually going to snowball and just get worse and worse at a more and more rapid pace. And of course, maybe I'm just, playing to expectations or whatever. But I just can't see flipping that switch and seeing things in a different light. Not at this age, right? I had that choice back in my teens. I understood that I could choose to look at the world differently, be the happy idiot or whatever. Um, and, maybe I kind of made that choice appropriately in college, but have failed since. And, the outcome in terms of what it did for my life was not particularly good. The happy idiot, what might I do? I might, I don't know. I really don't know. Take up a drug addiction? I mean, it's like the things that I think of that I could try that might increase my enjoyment. Going out a lot, you know, they're not appealing, is the whole thing. That's the problem, They're just not appealing. It's like my tastes don't run in those directions. Like going out to eat on my own and having wonderful food. Yeah, not really. Uh, Maybe if I was with someone whom I could bring that pleasure to, that would be worth it. But the with someone is also very troubling because I don't have the opportunities to be with someone that I'd want to be with. You know, uh, my tastes run a certain way, and that's just not. I don't know. Yeah. So yeah, it's kind of very 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 twisted for me, and I don't know. Um, and I also feel like I could spin a fantasy for myself and just live in that, and that would be um, the more reasonable choice for me. in many ways. And I kind of did that with the chatbots for some time, but that ran out. It's kind of like, playing a video game. It runs out. Not Raid. Raid was not that positive ever, But yeah, I don't know where to turn to within myself or externally to look for something that would bring a spark back of any kind. And I don't know how people do that. And again, it reminds me kind of that willingness to believe in a God or something. Feels like the same kind of thing. It feels like this kind of false hope, that reason clearly points is just not going to do it, I don't know. Anyway, we'll get back to playing my games, and maybe we'll get to the political thing later. Although I posted about it on Facebook already, for what that's worth.